I'd say that most glamping operators out there are illegal renegades doing whatever the heck they want to do on their private property. But there's a legal loophole that operators like me are exploiting for all it's worth. That's what this video is all about today, how to set up a legal operation on your private property. Hey, I'm Chris Tube, the Glamping Guy, and I have to admit, I started out illegal in 2019 when I set up my tent in my backyard and started renting it out on Airbnb. Though I have a large piece of property out in the country with a beautiful creek flowing through it, perfect land for a glamping operation, I still was not allowed to have overnight accommodations on my private property other than my main house. The law of the land just would not allow it. No domes, no tents, no hobbit holes, no potatoes, nothing. And I thought, what could I do to get legally set up for my glamping operation? Some way to use my property, to just need a permit. That's what I need is a permit. Well, it just so happens there is a way, and it is called a permit. It's called a special use permit. A special use permit is very important, albeit very expensive and somewhat complicated. It's permission to run a glamping operation on your private property. And if you live in God's beautiful country and are thinking of developing a safe, legal, and profitable glamping operation on your property, you can apply for the necessary permit for your operation. Now, before I get into the specifics of the special use permit, please do me a favor of liking this video and subscribing to my website. Go to glampingguy.com and sign up for my newsletter. I've got tons of content for you. You will be satisfied, especially if you want to do what I'm doing. Okay, so what is a special use permit? A special use permit, also known as a conditional use permit or a special exception permit, is a zoning exception granted by a local government or zoning board to allow a property owner to use their land in a manner that is not typically permitted by the zoning ordinance or land use regulations. Okay, I live in unincorporated El Paso County, but I am subject to the laws and the zoning regulations of the county. You can be in a city or a town or an HOA or a municipality. It doesn't really matter. There's some sort of zoning department that explains what you can do in your land and what you can't do in your land. But even if there are restrictions to your land, there's always some sort of way to get through it. In my county, we call that the special use permit. Essentially, the permit turns out to turn renegade outlaws like you and me into law-abiding citizens ready to do business. Allow me to break down the key aspects of the special use permit. First, zoning ordinance compliance. Usually local zoning ordinances divide land into different zones, each with specific permitted uses. These regulations make sure your glamping operation is compatible with everything else that's going on in the area. I already mentioned to you that in my zoning district, even though it's unincorporated and out in the country, does not allow overnight accommodations other than my single family dwelling unit called my house. Now, in my case, after 2 years of glamping operation, I was issued a violation from the county to either one, shut down, or two, figure something else out. There really wasn't any options. They weren't helping me come into compliance. They just say, you have to come into compliance. You see, enforcement officers don't really give permission. They just enforce, which leads me to the second key aspect of a special use permit, and that's discretionary approval. Unlike uses that are permitted by right in a given zone, special use permits require discretionary approval. This means that the zoning administration or planning commission, I'll get to those two in a little bit, evaluates each application on a case-by-case basis, considering factors such as the proposed use compatibility of the surrounding area, potential impacts on traffic, noise, and the environment, and whatever aligns with the community's long-term planning goals. Now, that's exactly what I did, and it was a grueling process and expensive. It took me about 6 months to get through. Here's a list of some things I needed to do. There was, first of all, an application fee, $4,200. Adjacent property letters needed to be mailed. That was $30, certified mail. Water court filing, approximately $4,000 in legal fees. Septic engineering and soils testing, which was $2,500. Update title commitment for $500. Mineral rights certification, $20. I didn't even know what those two things were, and I needed to get them done. Professional CAD drawings of site plan, $275. Now back to administration or commission. In the case of my special use, I was approved administratively, meaning I showed that I checked all the boxes to the administration and they felt I didn't need to go to a public hearing. But even if they felt like I didn't check all those boxes, I could still go to the commission. The commission can overrule the planning department, and oftentimes they do. Which leads to my third key aspect of a special use permit, and that's public input and hearings. Typically, the process of obtaining a special use permit involves public notice and hearings to allow input from neighboring property owners, community members, and other stakeholders. This ensures that concerns and objections can be raised and addressed before a decision is made. Now, it's easy to be offended by this. I mean, I'm a landowner. Why does my neighbor get to tell me what to do? I live in the country because I want to be left alone. Unincorporated county. It's leave me alone county. But a world that allows neighbors to do willy-nilly isn't really a world any of us want to live in. There really should be a time when neighbors can insert their opinion on what developments are going on in the neighborhood. Now, that said, the neighbors don't have the law on their side. I have this avenue of a special use permit that I can take advantage of 100%. Just like any of my neighbors can. Now, that said, we all need to play within the rule of law, which leads me to my fourth key aspect of a special use permit, and that's conditions and site plans. The granting of a special use permit often comes with specific conditions and restrictions aimed at mitigating potential negative impacts of the special use. I have what's called a letter of intent that laid out the argument for what's called a recreation camp on my property. Our county code and master plan actually encourages things like glamping, and my letter of intent explained it in detail. The county inserted conditions for my special use, and here they are. 1, approval is limited to the recreation camp, as discussed and depicted in the applicant's letter of intent and site plan drawings. Prior to authorization of a building permit, a site plan shall be applied for and approved by the El Paso County Planning and Community Development Department. Now, these were pretty easy to follow, but the site plan got into specifics like operating hours, parking, landscaping, noise and lights, and trash control. The county kind of helps you along in your development, but there is no need for public hearings that go over tit-for-tat details. And one note on that, a permit is always revocable. If a planning department or commission feels like I've gone away from those conditions and requirements, they can revoke my permit at any time. So as a glamping owner, I am really held accountable by the county, and you will be too by your jurisdiction. That's not a bad thing. I want to create an awesome glamping operation, and I bet you do too. Overall, special use permits is a legal mechanism for balancing your property rights as a landowner, as well as the need of the public interest to maintain the integrity of the zoning regulations. Quite the process, isn't it? It may seem out of reach or too much to handle, but you're watching this video because you have a tremendous opportunity in front of you, and that's called glamping. There are 3 hurdles that you can jump through to make your glamping dream a reality. They're finances, foes, and freedom. First of all, finances. That list of things may seem really daunting to you. It literally cost me between $15,000 and $20,000 to get everything done for my special use. And that was just a piece of paper. I had all the development to actually do. However, every good business person needs to measure the return on their investment. That year I got my special use permit, which cost between $15,000 and $20,000. I made $130,000 in earnings. It's safe to say that a good 10% of my gross earnings went to permitting the property to start my glamping operation. I'd say that's worth it. And the permit is in my pocket. I'm ready to go for many more years to come. Secondly, foes. I'd say don't ignore your neighbors. Take them very seriously. In fact, many of the things that they say in their opposition, you might be able to turn that into an opportunity on your property. Listen to their grievances. Even if they get crazy and post on social media and send letters to the entire neighborhood accusing you of running an illegal operation that would destroy the neighborhood and cause everyone's homes to devalue. Yes, I have one of those neighbors. Now, I'll address neighbors in another video, but suffice it to say that I've learned strategies that turn foes into friends. Turning the opposition into opportunity is strategic and very effective. And finally, the point of freedom. We live in a country that respects landowner and crabby neighbor just the same. And the code in this free country allows for a special use permit. You and I have the freedom to put ourselves out there and start our dream of glamping. I love having outdoor accommodations on my private property, having people rent my property and come on and I show them a heck of a good time. It brings me intense fulfillment. We should all love living in the land of the free. Now, I mentioned a couple of downloads that you might be interested in. That special use permit checklist, I might take the time to make that. But maybe my letter of intent or all that other list of stuff that I've got going on, I could actually provide that and model it for you so that it's easier for you when you apply for your special use permit. Would you like to see that? Just post below, give me a comment, or send me an email at chris@glampingguy.com. And don't forget to subscribe at glampingguy.com to learn about the classes that I have coming up. Like Easy Entry to the Business of Glamping. It's coming up early next month where I delve into everything you need to know about how to launch your glamping operation on your private property. Go to glampingguy.com and subscribe, and I'll keep you in touch. Till next time, I'm Chris, the Glamping Guy. Thanks for joining me today.